The threat of frustrated students carrying out demonstrations owing to unpaid allowances by NSFAS seems to have calmed. This following the decision by Higher Education Minister Dr Blade Nzimande to dissolve the board of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme earlier in the week. Nzimande announced not only the dissolution of the board, but also that he was placing the institution under administration. Well, to get a better sense of the feeling on the ground, let's take you to Newzroom Afrika's Katleho Sekhotho, who is in Pretoria. Katleho, good to speak to you. What are the sentiments of some students, student bodies, following the recent NSFAS developments?
A very good afternoon, Hugo. About 40 minutes left until we are set to hear from the Higher Education Minister, Mr. Blade Nzimande, on his decision earlier on in this week to dissolve the NSFAS board as well as place the institution under administration. Now, what we've heard from the sentiments from some of the students throughout today is that they welcome this decision to dissolve the board, but really want long-lasting solutions in terms of how NSFAS is run and how students are funded. But I do have with me the SRC member from TUT, to tell us more about his reaction to it. I mean, as an SRC member, you've been quite vocal. You face suspension as well. But as an SRC member, you continued your fight in terms of students getting their funding. Gia, just your reaction to what happened this week.
Well, we are not excited that the board is dissolved. I think this is not the first time that the minister decides to dissolve a board. I think it happened in 2018 under the minister, Naledi Pandor, where Randall Carlson was an administrator. And yeah, he indicated, warning officials, the National Assembly at the time, that if corruption, stealing and money laundering is not dealt with decisively at NSFAS, we're bound to have an administrator in 2 years' time. And 6 years later, the institution is put under administration. So look, we're not excited that we've been calling upon the dissolution of the board. I think we've also learned about these developments a month ago, that this is what the minister was intending on doing, because we've called upon the dissolution of the board. Of course, this is also informed by the developments that we've even had recordings in restaurants where the suspended chairperson was eating steak, discussing that he has power and influence over some processes at NSFAS. And that said to us, indeed, the scheme has collapsed. The CEO suspended, Mr. Andile Nongongo, was found guilty of handpicking some of these dodgy banks that have been given a responsibility to disperse allowances for our students. So, of course, we are waiting for that media briefing where the minister will give us a way forward. But we are still calling upon, a lot needs to be done. Second to that, the minister himself must dissolve himself, because I think we also maintain that view, that the minister must dissolve himself, because the higher education sector in this country has been in a state of a crisis for quite some time. And whenever students in general are raising concerns, the minister forever takes years to respond to some of these issues. He also has an assistant coach who is Butimana, and you'd understand that in any team, if the head coach is failing, the assistant coach must take over. So it therefore means that both of them are failing. So we're saying that Dr Nzimande and his assistant coach Butimana must vacate that space. We're sick and tired.
Yeah. And now, Kia, in terms of when we heard about this week's news, the dissolution of the board, you were on the brink of actually rallying student demonstrations to the likes of actually blocking the roads around the capital. Will you hold off on those as we hear what he has to say?
Remember, we were not threatening any form of instability. We were making a commitment that we've declared a national shutdown. Because look, to date we do not know the intentions about the direct payment service providers that were handpicked in restaurants by officials. We do not know what is going to happen. The spokesperson of NSFAS enjoys speaking a lot of English. in the media misleading the nation, because I think he had an interview with SABC News where he was posed a question as to what then becomes an interim alternative for universities and TVETs, and he cited that look, there's no problem, there are no challenges, but universities will be given an alternative, but TVET college students will still use the very same formula. So that said to us, indeed, there's still a crisis, because you can't isolate TVET college students from universities. Why must you treat them as if they are children of a lesser god? Because it's one sector under one administrator or one administration or one minister. So it can't be correct that universities are given a special attention, but you want to isolate these ones of the TVET sector. So we're calling upon, we're declaring that national shutdown has been declared. Anytime from now a bomb can strike. We are consolidating arrangements that pertain to that national shutdown, because it can't be correct that the Minister of Higher Education is implicated in corruption, the maladministration, and is actually behind the collapse of NSFAS. So it can't be correct, because we're not going to compromise the education of a black child. Dr. Bungenkosi has failed to roll out free education in this country, and we can't remain silent in our toilets and pretend as if everything is normal in this country.
We'll leave it right there, Gia. Thank you very much for your time. A very emotive subject, as you can tell, Hugo, in terms of student funding, and hopefully we'll hear some sort of lasting solutions, or a plan at least that will be implemented from the briefing that's about to start at 2 o'clock at GCIS from Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande. But students definitely seeking answers.